I'm so impressed with myself. Good morning, everyone. This is me, the real Fran Lewis, and Dr. Cavuto's here, and we're going to talk about miscue analysis and what teachers and parents should do when children make mistakes. So, this is going to be fantastic. I got the definition. Miscue analysis is the process of tracking and recording reader miscues, then reviewing the miscues to find a pattern. The purpose is to categorize these miscues, understand the strategies the reader uses, and the strategy the reader needs to learn. After identifying the reader's strategies and the source of miscue, the teacher can help the student with specific reading. The problem is that they have to understand that everybody makes mistakes, and I know that there are teachers that turn around and say, "Oh, what do you know? You don't know anything." So how do you handle this, and how do you explain to teachers that they have to be careful on how they tell a child they made a mistake?
Yeah,
Without, yeah, it's all up to you. You got it.
quite honestly, friend, I'm going to do something that might sound, I don't know, avant-garde, but we really have to stop when children read a word differently than is printed on the page. We really have to stop calling them
Yeah.
mistakes. In fact, we really should stop calling them errors. By the way, that's not avant-garde. Ken Goodman suggested that in the 1960s because not all deviations from text are errors. If the youngster happens to say, "Oh, it's cold outside. I better put on my warm coat," and the word is jacket, well, that's called a good mistake, you see, or a good miscue. And
Mhm.
quite honestly, the reason why Ken Goodman coined the term miscue is because when the youngster reads a word that's different than the word on the page, but it maintains the author's intended meaning, one of two things. Either he couldn't read the word, so he substituted something else, or more likely his head is way ahead of his eyes and he has already predicted that word. And that's easy to figure out. Just take your pencil as you're sitting next to him, point to the word, and I guarantee you, 99% of the time he will read the word correctly. Okay? So we really should, and again, I've been preaching this for years, but I guess teachers aren't listening to me. We should stop calling them oral reading errors because they're not all errors. If they maintain the author's intended meaning, they should be called all of them. Any deviation from text we should call a miscue. And why did we call them miscue? Because they're using the incorrect cueing system. He might be overusing the graphophonic. He might be using the semantic very well. So I think it makes a lot of sense to refer to them as miscues. And if Ken Goodman were alive today, he would rue the fact that they were still referring to them as errors. They're not errors in the strictest sense of the word. If they distort meaning, the farmer was planting things on his farm and the kid reads Fram, well, of course, that's a miscue and it's a semantically unacceptable miscue because it changes meaning. Okay? But if it says it was a really big storm, and the kid says it was a really huge storm, do you think he's looking at big and just seeing the word huge? No. His brain is ahead of his eyes. Kind of an interesting thing, miscue analysis, Fran.
I was on the phone with a couple of teachers because you know me, I do my research.
I know that.
And I was on the phone yesterday with someone. I was really kind of upset. I heard the teachers in her school say, "Oh, you don't know anything." I heard what they said, and I tried to explain to her that you're handling it the wrong way. I was also asked to do something, and I'm disappointed. My friend is in charge of something. They're having Authors Day next Friday, and they wanted me to come in and talk about being an author. I said, I'm not going to climb steps for 10 minutes just to go up to the school. I offered to do it on Zoom, and I offered to do it on Rest Team, and they said, no, you have to come here for 15 minutes. So I felt bad because I would really love to tell them how to become an author.
Yeah.
So yeah, what can I say? There are
Well,
so many different types of omissions: correction, omission, repetition, reversal, insertion, and substitution. And I know that when I taught reading, everybody did that. The problem is that Instead of telling the child you made a mistake or whatever, you have to explain to them how to deal with that or hear it. Because a lot of times when kids are reading, they're not listening to what they're saying.
Well, I'm not sure about that, friend. To be honest
Yeah,
with you, you're right. There are definitely more than a few youngsters
yeah,
who do not self-monitor. Right?
yeah,
If the farmer wanted to plant weed, it was this time to
yeah,
plant weed on the tram, and he keeps going. Clearly, he's not self-monitoring.
yeah,
Correct? But there are some youngsters who self-monitor, and as long as meaning isn't uh, altered, they just keep reading. But you know what? The teachers don't like that because they
yeah.
still insist on absolute word accuracy. And
Mhm.
without, I'm not suggesting it. This is a real nuanced area. That's why it hasn't been integrated into schools. Uh, but I'm not suggesting at all that the kid should never learn to read the word uh, a big, and he should be allowed to substitute huge all the time. In my view, why not? But be that as it may, he can read the word big. His head is just ahead of his eyes. Reading is a predictive activity. Ken Goodman wrote the best article on this. Reading is a psycholinguistic guessing game. And we hate the word guessing in schools. We don't guess, we read what's there. Fran, if I may, guessing gets us through life. Okay. There's, in fact, a brilliant book on human intelligence that I just read said there are two main things that make up
Yeah.
intelligence. One is background knowledge, schemata,
Uh
and the
huh.
second one, you ready, is prediction. Prediction. In fact, every moment of our life we are predicting. I wasn't surprised at all when I saw you on the screen, sitting in your chair by your desk, because I predicted that. If I saw you with a tennis racket in your hand, I probably would have been somewhat confused. Yes. So perhaps if we stop using the word guessing, because that word is anathema to a lot of teachers, I'm not sure why. I told you we predict every moment of our lives. Instead, we could call it hypothesis testing. I like that. Huh? Hypothesis testing, which actually is synonymous with guessing. And if it gets really, and it was really cold outside because there was a big storm, and he reads a huge storm. Actually, he's going to keep going, but you know what's going to happen? You know what's going to happen? You're going to get the machine gun. You know what the machine gun is? The teacher is going to say, no, 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 no. We don't guess. We read what's on the page. Friend, that's probably the worst advice you can give to the youngster. Of course, they should read what's on the page, but if they're reading huge for a big, that means they're way ahead, their eyes are way ahead. And if he were reading silently, you would never know it. Uh,
Most of the teachers that I spoke to, because I have it in front of me, promote out of standing out the words right away, rather than teaching them the correct way to do phonics.
huh.
They don't focus on self-correcting, and they don't focus on whole language views of understanding that positive and constructive feedback does help. But I know that from speaking to the teachers, and I try to explain to them, instead of saying to them, you have the wrong word, upper grades could do better. They could figure it out.
Yeah,
They can predict it. Little children that are in first and second grade should be given the skill to understand. Hear what you're reading. Does it make sense? They don't. They
yeah,
automatically tell them the word.
yeah.
That's their cue. And that's I never did that when I taught first grade. They made you suffer and figure it out.
Yeah, well, you're now talking about the exact title of my doctoral dissertation
Yeah,
way back when, which was
yeah,
feedback to miscue, feedback to miscue as a reflection of the teacher's theory of reading. And statistically, and that's not just my research, statistically, when children can't get a word, teachers typically ask them to sound it out. Yes, that makes
yeah.
sense. Right. Right. There's a problem with that, Brent. 40% of the words in English do not sound out. And Cavuto's not making this up. There's 26 letters that have to make 44 sounds. That means we're going to have a lot of words that simply cannot be sounded out. Now, why is the teacher asking the youngster to sound out a word that can't be sounded out?
Yeah. Like
Yeah, you
was
know
or
why.
were, those, yeah.
I'll tell you why, if I may. because the teachers take 6 credits in the teaching of reading, and we certify them as elementary school teachers. Out of 123 credits, they take 6. And you know what? That's in New York State. 38 states do not have any requirement at all, specific
Yeah.
number of credits.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. That's actually a travesty. So if the teachers would know that, they might not ask youngsters to sound out a word that's not soundable, like caught or you or mother or phlegm. That's a really good one. I like that one. A PHLAGM. Give me a break. Okay. Uh, but the feedback that teachers give to students when they make a miscue is
Mhm.
critically important. Now, if I may, the reason why sometimes the teachers don't have to give feedback is because we have Priscilla and Paul in the class. And you know who they are. Those are the 2 kids in the class who, whenever a youngster makes a oral reading miscue, they see it as their mission in life to always yell out the word for him. Am I right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot, a lot of the teachers, I said to them, they don't tape when the kids read. They don't, listen, or they have their phone and they don't listen to what they're saying. And a lot of times, instead of saying to them, stop, reread it, listen to what you said, they just tell them you're wrong. This is the right
That
word.
was an
That
excellent.
doesn't teach them anything. And I had one teacher that said when they have is or were, the kids are saying is. You can't sound out
No,
those words. The
no.
those words is not going to do it for you. And they don't understand. And I said to my friend on the phone, "What do you do?" She said, "Just tell them the word."
You
I said,
know,
and she's
to be
she's
honest,
teaching special ed, and I said that doesn't mean that they can't do it.
yeah. Well, to be honest with you, if I were giving, if
Yeah.
I were giving teachers advice in this respect, and I should make that hypothetical. I've done, oh, 100 workshops with teachers on miscue analysis. In fact, when miscue analysis first came out in the 60s and 70s by Ken Goodman, he made it. Unfortunately, we have this tendency to make things so complicated in schools, like running records. Running records are an offshoot of miscue analysis.
Hmm.
The same thing, except somebody wanted to get a different, some a different terminology for it, a different term. But so a lot of times teachers told me, "Oh, Dr. Cavuto, I heard about this miscue analysis. It sounds wonderful, but it takes so much time. You have to tape record the kid, and poor readers don't like to be tape recorded anyway. I don't think anybody does really. Uh, and then I have to analyze it. No, let me make this very simple. And I developed my own technique, which I called MMA. You might have read the article about this, friend? No? You didn't because I never published it. I do that frequently. I write them and I keep them on the shelf. But anyway, MMA, mental miscue analysis. You're listening to the kid read. He reads Fram for farm. Okay. In your head, you say, okay, what kind of miscue is that? I can see what he's doing. He's overusing the graphophonic cueing system because it's
Uh huh.
close, right? Fram, farm.
Uh huh. Yeah.
He's overusing the graphophonic cueing system, and he's not using the semantic cueing system at all. That's why the feedback to that miscue should be, Joey, hold on. Read that sentence again. The farmer was planting wheat on the Fram. Does that make sense? No. Think about it. What word might make sense there? Anytime a teacher says that, what word might make sense there? He or she is giving a semantic cue, a meaning cue. Is that good? Yeah. Is that good all the time? No. It's only good when the word is contextually bound, that you could figure it out from the context. Huh? Yeah, he was a Carpenter. Right? He was a Carpenter. And the kids were, oh, skip it. His uncle was a, okay, what word do you think makes sense there? Uh, That's ridiculous. There's not enough context to figure it out, huh? He worked with hammers and nails. He builds things. He was a Carpenter. Then you might say, okay, what makes sense? What makes sense there? What do you know? What you call people who work with hammers and nails for a living? Now the kid might now not be part of the schema, and quite honestly, with that word, I have no problem with the teacher saying, "Let's try to sound it out," because
Hmm. Yeah.
carpenter is very sound outable. Yes,
A lot of times they just they have time constraints.
I'm
Now
sorry.
I know when I taught the my fun children of discipline problems, whatever,
Yeah,
and every teacher has reading groups.
yeah,
And unfortunately, they have, I'm going to do a half an hour with this group, 20 minutes with that group, 10 minutes with that. It is always the top group that suffers because the bottom two groups need first, and they just have a time limit. So
yeah,
they'll do a reading lesson with the kids, and then they just tell them the words, and then they say, well, they're done.
yeah,
In other words, they don't give them. When I taught reading, and I had three reading groups, they got 45 minutes,
yeah,
and it doesn't matter. They don't seem to get it. And unfortunately, I've listened because I listen in a lot. Um, they just tell them the word.
yeah.
That doesn't help.
No, no. And to be honest with you, if I were, I should have agreed with you so
Yeah,
quickly on that because if teachers don't know how to give adequate and appropriate feedback,
yeah, yeah.
they're actually better off just counting to five. Counting to five is called a wait time. Wait time before you say anything.
Yeah,
And they also have to. I'm going to say this partially with tongue in cheek, and somebody got very, very nervous with me in a workshop when I said this. But you have to have a kind of a gag rule in your class, and the gag rule is you go like this. Boys and girls, this is this. This is what we did. This is what we're going to do this year in second grade. In
I know.
this is George's class. When someone reads the word incorrectly, no one is allowed to say anything. No
Hmm.
one is allowed to say anything. The only one who's allowed to say anything is me because I have the big desk, you see? So, but I want you to listen to what I say.
Hmm.
And by gagging them, as it were, figuratively, of course, but in fact, I go like this. Yeah, so they understand. No, no, no. Priscilla and Paul aren't happy because they just learned, they just lost their raison d'etre. That's they love doing that. No, 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 not good, terrible. They have to be quiet and see what the teacher does. Again, the problem is, and I'm please, teachers who are watching, I have the utmost respect for teachers. It's a tough job, and you really have to know your stuff. But I'm really big on both of those. Knowing your stuff is important. So if the teacher's giving good feedback, if the teacher said it was it was it was a horrible accident, and one car crashed into a great big a great big track. And you no, 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 sounds it out. Well, that word sounds out reasonably well, but I don't think I would even say sound it out because that is so contextually bound. Huh? There was a big car crash. A car ran into huh? A youngster who has reasonable schemata or schema should be able to predict that word. So my first feedback might be, what word do you think might make sense there? Uh, what's do you know what the TR sound is? Look what I just did, friend. I started out with a semantic cue. Huh? That didn't quite get it for him. Now I'm kicking in a graphophonic cue. Giving good and appropriate feedback to student miscue is an art unto itself. It really is. And that's why when people say to me, well, what should parents do? What should parents do when they're reading at home with
Yeah, that's the next question.
okay. Well, my response is, Ren, you're going to be a little bit surprised with this, but unless we start holding workshops for parents on differential feedback to student miscue, in my opinion, parents should be told by every teacher, grades 1, 2, 3, beyond grade 3, they shouldn't be reading out loud anyway at home, unless they're really suffering with decoding. But anyway, um, parents should be told if the youngster can't get a word, count to 3, count to 4, and just tell them. Brand, the only reason why I'm saying that, and you're right, yeah, well, that's not really helping. Well, it is. It's keeping the process going, and uh, and uh, I'm not sure how many parents are out there who can
Well,
differentiate between phonetically consistent and phonetically inconsistent words. So they might be asking the kid to sound out a word that's not sound outable, like friend. Sound out friend. IEND. That violates the the only rule most people know, which is when two vowels go walking, the first one does the talking. Yeah. Well, that word should be friend then. Am I correct?
yeah, because most of the parents just tell them the word. As a matter of fact, my two nieces are in second grade and third grade. They're really smart. And I try to say, well, what happens when Alex doesn't know a word? Or we tell her to sound it out. I said, is that the only option?
Right.
The teachers just focus on phonics. A lot of parents can't be bothered. A lot of parents just tell them to just sit. And the sad part is that there's reading teachers, specialists in every school, and all they come in and watch the teacher teach, and then they're supposed to model a lesson and how it's supposed to be done. And I said, well, what do? Well, they read a story and ask them if they understand. I said, that's not teaching them how to understand miscues. That's not teaching them how to read fluently. What's the skill that you want them to teach? The
Well,
reading teacher comes in like I would come in and say, well, what do you want me to talk about? Main idea, drawing conclusions, phonics. You want me to do any kind of miscues? What do you want, left out word? What do you want me to teach? And then I would decide what needed to be done for each class.
right. But
They
you
didn't.
see,
I mean, my reading groups would be, phonics one day, word recognition, and then it would be comprehension, and then their choice the third day what they wanted to read.
uh-huh.
So,
Yeah,
but the teachers, they don't care. They
yeah.
don't have the skill, and I know that. So, how do you change that? And I have the list here like parents, they need to read together every day, talk and build a vocabulary, model reading. But how many of these parents can read?
Well,
That's the
that,
hard part. What
that,
about,
that's a different podcast, friend. That's a different podcast. Maybe 2 or 3 months
yeah,
from now we'll do that one. But to be honest with you, to stick with the topic at hand, which is
yeah, I know.
uh, miscue analysis isn't something that you say today I'm going to do it. Miscue analysis should be done every single time a
It's
youngster is
hard.
reading out loud. And if you learn how to do it in your head, as I just said with my mental miscue analysis, by the way, I didn't publish that article. That was in the 1990s. And all of a sudden, uh, Ken Goodman's daughter, I'm going to forget her name for the moment, but his wife was Yetta Goodman, and Debbie Goodman came out with an article, and she had a very similar name. And I said, "Oh darn, I missed that one," but that's okay. And her point was the same as mine. You have to teach teachers how to use this technique instantaneously. There shouldn't be, "Oh, I'm going to do it today." They should do it every time a youngster reads out loud. Now, you know our friend Edmund Burke Huey, who wrote the psychology and of
Yeah.
reading. Yeah? Uh, Edmund Burke Huey said, and so to completely analyze what we do when we read would be the acme of a psychologist's achievements. Okay, very beginning of his book. What you were doing when we're doing a miscue analysis is we are analyzing. We are getting inside that youngster's head to say for ourselves, why did he make that miscue? Or we might say, oh, you know what? That was a miscue. I'm going to let it slide because it makes sense. And I think if I went back and I pointed to that word, he actually
Uh,
would read it. So you don't want to thwart, in my opinion, hypothesis testing or good predictions. Okay, this is not. You know, I smile because I just read in the Science of Reading, and we won't get into that today because I haven't had breakfast yet. But in the Science of Reading, they were outlawing schools that now have bought into Science of Reading because we buy into reading programs like we buy into toothpaste. New and improved. Uh, so I read recently. I couldn't believe this. Probably in the Journal of Literacy, that there are some states that are banning the
yeah.
teaching of the three queuing systems. Grant, tell me that's
I,
not bizarre. That's like banning how language really works.
it's so sad. I mean, I don't know how many parents actually read with their children. And I
Yeah,
don't know how many kids have somebody that babysitters that take care of them and can't read either. I know that. And it's a sad world out there. I know that my little niece, Grace Marie, reads, she's in second grade, reads on fourth grade. She's smart. I
uh-huh,
know that Alexandria is smart. But then my niece, I said to her, I would love to read with her, share a book, and read together. Oh, I said that's why she has an aunt that we could talk about books. I mean, I'm not going to help tell her the word, and she's smart enough to do it. And it bothers me because I'm smart enough to do it. So the kind of feedback that parents give, I mean, I heard from parents in the libraries, oh, that's the wrong answer. That's the wrong way. instead of helping the child to figure it out. And I know they
Right,
go to the library and the librarian reads books to the kids too, but the librarian doesn't always answer questions, just reads the story and they're done.
right,
So, yeah, that doesn't help either. And
right.
it bothers me because teacher feedback and parent feedback and these reading specialists, they're not trained like I was. They don't have the masters and the extra PDs like I did.
Yeah.
They didn't go to Lehman College to
Well,
learn.
you had some good professors over there, you know? All
Yeah.
right, I'm teasing.
I had, except for one professor that had no idea about independent frustration but language experience or anything, and she had no idea about instructional level and how to correct it. Other than that, everybody was fine.
You felt like you were
But she
teaching the
wasn't.
class. You
Yeah,
felt
I
like you
did.
were teaching the class.
She actually defined them wrong.
Ah,
And I tried to explain to her that's not how you define independent level instructional. And I went to the head of the department and I go like, she doesn't know what she's doing.
right.
It was really sad.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like correct, but the class was glad I did it. But still, there are a lot of professors that don't know and train people. So,
Well,
what
Fred,
would be the right way if a parent came to a teacher for open school? What would be the right way for the teacher to explain to the parent how do you work with the child instead of yelling at them and telling them they don't know anything? What do you do when child parent can't read?
well, friend,
Makes it even
I,
harder.
I'm gonna, if I may, I'm gonna reframe the question about what do you do when the youngster
Yeah,
is supposed to be doing his 15 or 20-minute read aloud with you every night, as most
yeah,
many schools throughout the country teachers do that first, second, particularly, right?
yeah,
So if I, not if I've taught K through graduate school for 50 years now. Uh,
mhm,
but if a parent, if I were teaching first or second grade, and I happen to be, if I told them that I'd like a youngster to read a book at his independent level, right, friend? Independent level at home to you. And independent means he should be able to read it without much help, if I at least assessed him correctly or her. I would say, if he comes to a word that doesn't know, my best my best advice to you would be count to five and simply tell him. Now, friend, the reason why that may not ring well with you is because, oh, come on, you're just, you're not fostering any learning. Yeah, but the
mhm,
alternative to that is teaching the parent how to give appropriate feedback to Miss Q, which, as I said, I've done workshops with hundreds of teachers, and they still find it hard. It's not that hard for us because we know how to do it. We know when to give a graphophonic prompt. We know
mhm,
when to give a semantic prompt. Okay,
mhm.
a semantic prompt when the sentence has enough cues where the youngster can guess the word. Okay, or the youngster can take a shot at it using, let's get rid of that word guess. No, that's it. I get rid of it. We guess every moment of our lives, but if it has enough clues in the sentence, in the best of all worlds, I would like to tell the parent, if it has enough clues there, say to him, read it again, say blank for that word, and tell me what word might make sense. How about that? You see, that's one strategy which, again, if parents could do it and do it properly, and we have to train parents. There's a linguist said reading is not a school phenomenon. Reading is a
Yeah,
reading is a cultural phenomenon, meaning parents, caregivers, they have a role to play, but we have to show them how to do that. And
I
advice
know.
giving advice about feedback to miscue is not easy. That's why sometimes I do the default, which is just count to four. That's called wait time. If they don't get it, then just tell them the word. You know what that does, friend? That keeps the process going at least. If I may, one small vignette. My office, I had the youngster must have been coming a month, uh, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and once a week. I don't drag them 5 days a week. And but they have reading at home. I show the parent what to do. And I'm sorry, I tell them it's an independent level. They shouldn't have much difficulty. But this one gentleman told me after 5 weeks, Dr. Cavuto, we're going to really terminate lessons. And I said what I always say, is it financial? Because if so, we can take care of that. No, 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 your fees are very reasonable. But what happens is when I'm reading with him at home, the book you send home, um, he ends up crying. I said, excuse me? He said, yeah, he ends up crying. I said, crying? He said, yeah, because he cuts for a word he can't get. And Doc, I won't tell him. I won't tell him. I keep making him sound it. And I just went like this. Is that when he starts getting upset? Well, yeah, kind of, but I won't tell him. Friend, you believe? You know something? There are more than a few parents out there who think that it's I don't know, what's the serious sin in Catholicism? A cardinal sin? Nah, but take it out of religion. It's a cardinal sin to tell the word. The parent. So I said to him, "Do me a favor. Don't stop. Continue. Don't even pay me for the next 3 weeks." I said, but when he's reading at home to you, when he comes to a word he can't get, count to three, tell him the word, and let me know what happens. At the end of 2, 3 weeks, he stopped in my office. He said, "Doc, you're right. The crying is over. He's enjoying reading more. When we sit down to read, he's happy. He's not frustrated. I'm not frustrated." And keeping the process going. What Jim, hold on, I'll get this. The the Matthew effect in reading. The
Uh-huh.
Matthew effect in reading. Good readers are good readers because they read a lot. Why do they read a lot? Because they're good at it. Because they're good at it, they like it more. But what's the opposite of that? This is from the book of Matthew, New Testament, 28:34, the chapter and verse. Uh, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Huh? They applied it to reading. Keith Stanovich at um, UCLA, University of, I'm sorry, at Stanford. He said, so poor readers, because they can't read, hate reading. And because they hate reading, they don't do it. Because they don't do it, they get poorer. You see? So this is this and the Matthew effect in reading is insidious. In fact, I just devised uh, 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 what do you want to call it, a device to help with that, which I can't talk about now, but hopefully it will help. In any case, we have to have allow youngsters to keep the process going. And simply counting to three, is that in telling? Is that the best thing? No. Is that the most pragmatic thing for parents to do? Yes, because at least it allows the youngster to continue and not be upset. Ah, la la la. Might he see that word again? Yeah. Statistically, I think it's so you see a word 28 times in different contexts until you can recognize it when you couldn't initially. So by counting to three and telling, there's a good chance he will come up to that word again. And you know what? As this gentleman said, yeah, but Doc, you know what happens? I tell him, and like 8 words later, the same word comes up and he can't recognize it. I said, no problem. What do you do then? I do what you said. That's exactly what you should do. Keep doing it. All right, friend. It is so that makes the parent's job of sitting down with the youngster and giving him feedback when he needs help.
Yeah.
That makes it so much easier. Is that going to help the youngster? Is that teaching him to read? Well, let me put it this way: that's allowing him to engage in the process more. And in fact, the youngster used to read 20 minutes. This gentleman told me now we can do it a half hour. There's no problem. He doesn't mind it. Of course not. He said, but still, don't worry about it. That same word comes up again. He will get it. He will get it. But if you continue to give that feedback you were giving, you're gonna have a lot of tears, because I'm sorry, Mr. Whatever, Mr. Jones, you probably were asking him a lot of times, unintentionally, of course, to sound out words that are not sound outable, like the word caught. Would you ask him to sound that out? He said, well, yeah, sure. Yeah, doesn't sound out. Caught does not sound out. Caught. Come on. Ooh, phonics, ridiculous. And I couldn't have had a more pleased client, if you will, or little boy, more importantly, little boy. He smiled when he came in because he knew that things had changed at home, because of in terms of the reading, in terms of the feedback. So parents, until you become expert at giving good feedback to student miscue, count to five, three, five. Younger kids, five. A little bit older kids, three. That's right. Go the opposite way around. When the kid is younger, after 3 seconds, if he hasn't got, just give him the word. If he older, a little bit older, if he can't get the word, count to five. Just tell him, honey, that word is caught. 3 sentences later, he still can't get it. He said, honey, that word is caught. What? Friend, tell me if I'm wrong. The parent, honey, I just told you that word over there. But you know what? When I see Joe Schmo in the bowling alley and somebody introduces me to him, and nice to meet you. And I see him the following week. You know what? I'm probably not going to remember his name is Joe Schmo. Why? Because I haven't seen him enough. Am I right? We're
Mhm.
the same way. We get to recognize them by seeing them a lot. And how do we see them a lot? By reading a lot. And how do you read a lot? By allowing or by someone allowing you the pleasure and the ability to just continue on by giving you the word that's giving you trouble. It's all that simple. Uh, Mental misanalysis, I love it. I love teachers mental misanalysis in your head. Did that miscue based upon what the youngster just read? Should I give him a graphophonic prompt, which is? Could you tell me what that ACK in that word is? No. Okay, that ACK is act. Now try it. Act. There you go. Beautiful. Track. Now, again, see, this doesn't have to do with are you phonics, are you a whole language, or are you some lady told me I'm OG. I didn't know what OG was, but Odin Gillingham. Okay, OG. I'm going to make a sweatshirt up with all those titles on them. But the point is, teachers need to be trained how to give good feedback to student miscue. They should be teaching mental miscue analysis much easier than tape recording them and analyzing the miscue across the board in 20 different categories. Unfortunately, Ken Goodman was well intentioned, but
Before I forget,
his daughter fixed it.
on Tuesday, New York Times author Richard Corretto will be here with his new book, Winter Season. And watch people how you handle a crime in 1817 without the technology today. On February 4th, I'm so excited. It's 1 year since I'm doing Restream. Dr. Gloria Mitchell, who is an activist, we're going to talk about Black history.
Wonderful.
Oh, yeah, and she's gonna do all the people, and I get to do how people have to deal with it. On the 18th, we're going to do a special. No, it's going to be on the 24th. Happy birthday, George Washington! Happy birthday, America! With Sherry Ellis with her book Happy Birthday to Us, and I am so excited on March 4th, New York Times author David Putnam will be here with his two books, yeah? And they're not the Bruno Johnson series. It's his new series of Imogene, who is completely nuts, and Harvey, who is completely out of his mind. They're octogenarians, they're 80-year-olds that solve murders and cause dead bodies.
Oh my
And
goodness.
what
Oh my
I
goodness.
learned, and when I finally did my reading groups, I'll never forget this. The kids turned around to each other and they knew when they made a mistake.
Yeah.
And they would go like, uh-oh. And by the time I got done with these groups, they were able to figure out their own whatever. So I'm excited. This is great. So parents need to understand that it's okay, mistakes are made.
Yeah, well, we're
But
not going to call them mistakes anymore, right, friend? We're going to
yeah,
call them miscues.
yeah,
It matters, you see, because
yeah,
mistake, as you know, as
yeah,
a voracious reader, yourself more than probably 99% of the people I know, and you've interviewed an incredible number of
yeah.
authors. But we have to really stop calling them mistakes. We should call them miscues. And you know what really bothered me? This is going to sound weird, but in the 1990s, and when miscue analysis was starting to get ingrained in education, uh, the football
Yeah.
football league started calling when a person missed a pass. This always screwed up. He missed that pass. They started calling them miscues. And I said, no, 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 please don't call them miscues because in that case, if he misses the pass that was thrown right to it, it is a mess up. It is a screw up. That is a mistake. But that is totally anathema to what we do with miscues in reading. That stuff they still call them miscues, but you know what? My sense is the narrators of football games don't have master's degrees in reading, so we can forgive them.
Well, what are we attacking next and when?
Okay, let's see.
I gotta see on my phone.
Okay.
I can't believe that all these people all of a sudden need the great me to do something.
Well,
But I
you're
have
tough.
one on the 2nd and the 4th of March, believe it or not. And I'm going to brave somebody on the 24th. We won't say who. And I can do whatever month you want.
Well, the 2nd and the 4th of March. Can you tell me what days of the week they are?
Yeah, the 2nd and the 4th of March, I'm doing two. I have a new author on the 4th and David Putnam
Oh,
on the 4th. And on the 24th, I have the dentist. We
I
don't want
see.
to talk about. I could do April. I don't have any in April yet.
Okay. Well, quite honestly, other than Friday, most of the days I'm available this time in the morning. After that, I'm running and doing a five.
Whatever day you tell me, the morning is the only day I might do them.
Okay, uh, Tuesday, Tuesday, Wednesday is fine.
Okay, how about April 8th? Is that all right? That's a Wednesday.
That sounds fine. That's not during the Easter
You
break,
you
is
have
it?
you have to decide what I'm researching though.
Yeah, I most certainly will come up with something. Absolutely, we'll try to get something that follows a miscue analysis. Now that's not during the break that they have for.
Yeah.
It,
Whatever you think. The only thing we haven't done is how to do research or how they have what happens when you get a project and you don't know what to do. I mean, my 8-year-old niece reads like 10 books a day because
yeah,
she's got her cousin or her aunt's thing. Henley Rose reads like 10 books a day.
yeah,
She can't stop reading, which is perfectly fine.
yeah. I have my favorite granddaughter, and I can say that because she's my only granddaughter. Uh, Told me that she had to memorize a poem and
Yeah,
recite it to the class. So I said, "What did you pick?" She said, "Well, Poppy, I read one of Emily's poems. I had given her an anthology of Emily
yeah.
poems years ago." So I said, "Which one did you pick?" She said, "On books." I said, "That's great." I said, "Did you have it memorized already?" She said, "Yep," and she did it for me. And the next week, she was all excited because they had the dress rehearsal for this thing, and she didn't look that happy when she came home. And I said, she called me up and I said, Poppy, it didn't go that, it went okay, but the teacher had two corrections. I said, what were they? She said, well, in the beginning it says on books and it says with books. Oh, uh, books are like frigates. With a book, you can traverse the world. And then it goes on and on. I said, okay, what was the criticism? What was the problem? She said, well, the teacher wanted me to perhaps change the word frigate because it sounds like something like a nasty word or something. I said, no, no. So, yeah. And then she also said, it's not traverse, it's traverse. That's scary, friend.
So